Hi there, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to take a few moments to talk to you about a very important topic if you're going to get married. I want to talk to you about how to plan, prepare, and pay for the perfect wedding. It may sound complicated, and it may be complicated, but it can also be simple. So this channel is primarily going to be about loving your husband and loving your children well, and it's going to encourage all of us to be better wives and mothers. But I wanted to take the first few videos to talk about things leading up to the marriage. And obviously, the last thing before the marriage starts is the wedding. So how do you plan a wedding? There's probably as many different ways as there is weddings. But I think that once you're engaged, I think the husband and wife to be should sit down. You should iron out some framework, like how many people, like what size of wedding do you want, which may end up changing a little bit, obviously, because you may not even realize how many people there are in your family or the other, your spouse to be's family. So you may have to up it a little bit, but so you want to talk about the size, you want to talk about what kind of venue, maybe the specific venue, but at least, do you want to get married outside? Do you want to get married inside? Do you want to get married in the church? Do you want to get married some other location? Do you just want to do a quick, cheap wedding in the courthouse? There's so many options. And I think these things are important. And ladies, a lot of times the guys will leave the wedding planning up to you, but I do think it's important to consult the men because they may have things that they want or don't want. In my instance, I had been married before, as I said earlier in a previous video, so I was okay just getting married at the courthouse. I didn't need a wedding. My husband had never been married, so he wanted a church wedding. Since he had never been married and that was his desire, that's what we did. So men may have things they want. So make sure you check in. Even if he says, oh, the wedding's up to you, you can have whatever you want, do consult him. The reason I say to set some framework in place is because a lot of people have opinions about weddings. And they may start telling you what you need to do, what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, what they think you should do. And just like so many things in your marriage, it needs to be between you and your husband. Not that you don't take the other people's opinions into consideration, depending on what the relationship is with them. But this is your wedding, and you don't want to be a bridezilla, but this is a big day and it should be the husband and wife to be. Another thing that I think that needs to be discussed more now than maybe it was in decades past is who's paying for the wedding. It used to be the bride to be's family paid for the wedding. I don't think that's the case a lot of times. A lot of times I'm sure it still is, but a lot of times it's the couple that's paying for it. That was our case, again, because I'd been previously married. Now, my dad did give us some money, and my mom made my dress, and my sister made our cake, so that actually saved us a lot of money. But there was a lot of other things that we paid for, and so, we stayed within a budget. We did not go into debt for our wedding. It was a simple wedding, not that big, really. So yeah, one of the things that we ran into where there was definitely a strong opinion that was different than ours was we just do not drink alcohol, and we did not want alcohol at our wedding, which I don't know how common that is, but some of our family drinks quite regularly, or did at the time. And so it was suggested to us that we needed to have alcohol, and we said no. So this family member said, well, what if we paid for a keg of beer, I think is what they suggested. And we said, no, we do not want alcohol at our wedding. And we were told, well, but if you don't have alcohol, people probably aren't going to stay for the reception. Well, they did. We had no alcohol. People stayed for the reception. I don't think anybody left. If they did, it was because they had to go to work or something like that. So it ended up being okay. And so yeah, there's just so many different things. So, I mean, there's no big wedding hack to have the perfect wedding, to set the perfect budget, but the perfect wedding is what you and your husband to be want. And again, maybe taking other people's thoughts and feelings into consideration, but when it comes down to it, if it's something that you're adamantly against, which us having alcohol at our wedding was, so we took a stand against that. There was other things that we did. In fact, my guess is that the whole church wedding thing, I don't know how much that was my husband and how much that was his mom. I think he wanted to have it at a church, but I know she did. My husband was the last son to get married. He's the oldest, but he was the last one to get married. And the other two did not have church weddings. And she wanted one to have a church wedding and be able to, invite family. I think there was a cousin that was married maybe the year before us. And I think she wanted us to outdo that cousin's wedding. And we just weren't all about that. So again, there's things that you will need to possibly stand against for you to have peace and you to have the wedding you want, because you're the one that's going to look back at the pictures. It's the start of your marriage. And, they had their chance to have their wedding, so you should too. And, if it's something that doesn't matter, then yeah, because it is a family event. So if it's something that you're not really opposed to, there are concessions that can definitely be made depending on the relationship and the finances and all that kind of stuff. So just get on the same page with your husband to be, and hopefully everybody comes along. A wedding is supposed to be, the uniting of two people forever, for life. So, just have fun with it. Make it memorable, but don't go overboard. If you don't have the money, don't go into a lot of debt for it. It's not going to make your marriage better. In fact, it very well may add some stress to your marriage. One of the biggest problems in marriage is finances. So, spending tons of money, especially if it's debt, if you have the cash flow, go ahead and do it if that's what you want to do. But going into debt isn't going to help, and having expensive rings. Again, if you can afford it, great, get whatever you want. But if you can't, it's okay. I mean, our rings were not expensive. I would say between my two rings and my husband's ring, we probably spent less than $500. 16 years later, we're still married. Our marriage hasn't been impacted by not having thousands of dollars worth of rings. Some of these things society looks at, and yes, it's nice to show off a beautiful ring, but again, it's not worth, to me anyway, making huge payments on if you can't afford it in cash at the time. So, I guess this is just permission to have your wedding the way you want. Not even permission, just advice to set your marriage up and for success, and have these memories to look back on and not regret doing things that you didn't want to do, or spending money that you didn't want to spend, or in the same case, maybe not having some of the things that you wanted because you did do things that somebody else wanted. When it comes down to it, people aren't judging your wedding as much as you might think. And at the end of it, you're married. Whether you have a big wedding, a small wedding, expensive wedding, more reasonably priced wedding, whether you go to the courthouse, whether you get married in the church, whether you get married inside, outside, at the end of the day, you're married. And that's when obviously your life starts with your spouse. And your futures from that day forward, and you can write whatever you want for your future, no matter what kind of wedding you have. So I would just encourage you to sit down. If you're getting married, just getting engaged, know you're going to get engaged soon, or hoping you do, sit down and talk about some things ahead of time. I think one of the biggest things that so far my videos are talking about, overall arching theme, is communication. We just assume that people we love think the same way we do, and they don't. And I think a lot of problems can be avoided with good communication. And that's something I'm still working on. Like, when I say something to my husband, sometimes I don't give enough detail because I just assume, we just assume if we say something that the other person, you know, thinks the same things along with it that we did. And I'm really learning that's not the case. So again, just have a wedding that you guys like and start your life out on the right foot. So thank you for tuning into this video. If you would like and subscribe, share if you think that maybe this would help anybody, I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.